All right. Good morning, folks. Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, and of course our affiliate station in the western part of Massachusetts, AM 730 WACE. Also live streaming on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, and you can take us anywhere. Live streaming 24/7 there. You know, you can even tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she will do that. You can also go to our show Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. And it's the audio that is there, but there's a camera in the corner of the studio, so that's fine too. But most importantly, the audio is streaming. So several ways to listen to the show. And thank you for the texts and the emails. We do have the lines open and available, of course, at 61, well, first of all, call in line 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000, easy number to remember. Our text line is 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, or if you mail, text Joe, email that is, text Joe on the radio at gmail.com. It will appear on the same screen in real time. All right, great show lined up for us this morning. Cam is behind the board. Good morning, Cam. How are you, sir? Good weekend? Yeah? Now, what's going on with the World Series? Is it me, or is that like happening and it's not getting the attention it normally gets? Really? Okay. All right. It's just kind of coasting by because of, I don't know, is it because of COVID, or is it because people aren't paying as much of attention? I know like football and NBA, right, they've lost some viewership because of the whole political aspect of it, right? NFL, what is it's like half the viewership down? It's down. I don't know. I'm not really following that story that well, so we'll look into that. Maybe someone could call in at 508-871-7000 and tell us what's happening with the sports. Anyway, coming up in the second hour today, we'll be joined by Steve Hall. Now, Steve is a candidate for the state senate seat currently held by Ann Goby. That's that area that's kind of southwest of Worcester. He can define it a little better than I can. But Steve will begin to talk to us about his campaign. And his background is in the nursing home and medical facility. And I'm saying this because while he's in here, we can talk to him a little bit about Holyoke, and we'll talk about Massachusetts in general, the shutdown, the policies, how it's being handled, whether he agrees with the governor, whether he'd do things different, just his view on that. Also, of course, we'll touch on balloting. I mean, now this is open lines, by the way, so for the first hour here, guys, just open lines, 508-871-7000, your chance to bring up whatever you want or respond to some of the things that I'm thinking about here. We're days away, a week from Tuesday. I mean, can you believe this? 9 days really is what it comes down to. Not even. I mean, if you count tomorrow, 8 days. And we have the 2020 election, but we've had nearly 60,000, 56,000 people, million people have already cast ballots. And people who cast their ballot, you know, this early, right, they're pretty dedicated to that choice. Wouldn't you say? I mean, if you're casting your ballot a week out, 2 weeks out, if you've done this whole mail-in, you probably set on your candidate. Not much is going to change your mind. So those are pretty well done, because it would really stink if you cast your ballot rather, you know, last week or 2 days ago or even yesterday, and something happens, or for some reason you change your mind. Well, that really stinks, huh? Because you can't undo it. What do? Go to the clerk's office. I cast my ballot, but you know what? I did it too hastily, too fast. I need to change it. Give it back to me. I want to change it. That doesn't happen. So you want to be very sure about that. But we have this new stuff that has come out here. you know, we always talk about the October surprise, but that's usually the Democrats actually dropping some kind of bomb on the Republicans. The Joe Biden situation, and I say Joe Biden because it's not a Hunter Biden. This is not a Hunter Biden issue, folks. And watching the CNNs of the world and how they're treating this, first of all, they're not really treating it. They're not covering it as the news item it is. Now, they ran with the misinformation and the unverifiable dossier and, you know, Moscow prostitution stories about Trump. Stuff that, well, we know they couldn't verify because none of it was true. So it was never verified. They just verify among each other. Have you noticed this? That they really think that when the story came out that President Trump allegedly said that about soldiers when he was in France, they just confirmed it with each other and said that's confirmation. But what they were confirming is that the Atlantic wrote the story. And then the New York Times carried it about the Atlantic article, and the Atlantic article confirmed the fact that the New York Times carried it. You see what I'm saying? So they just confirmed to each other without any actual confirmation. Yet now we have a situation where there's actual evidence, tangible evidence. Joe Biden said during the debate that it was the Russians again. And Trump that was a pretty good response, folks, right? You're really going to go with that, Joe? That's what you're going to go with. This again, the Russians. So Joe Biden, a Hunter, and again, let me clarify this. This is not a Hunter Biden story. It's about the Biden family. It's about Joe Biden using his position and selling his office or access to his office, i.e. himself, through surrogates, meaning his family members. Because if you're his brother or son, you're getting lucrative deals from around the globe at the key points, key locations that he is point man for. Or he's supposed to be representing the American interests and or policies there. And they've been able to parlay that into deals. And we can tell now because they exist. So Hunter drops this laptop off to get repaired. Now, this in itself, if you had a computer that you knew, because we know from the emails that they're very paranoid about this, it says right in it, don't talk about it, don't talk to anyone else about it, don't acknowledge Joe unless you're face-to-face anything, because they're paranoid. And if you drop a laptop off and it has those emails, documents, and more importantly, the pictures, somebody knows the pictures that are on there. And they're not good pictures. Right? You can go Google them, you can go find them, they're out there. But would you surrender the control of that computer? I wouldn't. When I need a computer repair, the guy comes to my office and does it. Now I'm concerned because not the computers that deal with production and doing these segments and that kind of thing, but the computer in my other office, which because it's a private investigation agency and I have these contracts with these data services and so forth, they actually dictate and they do inspect the property as to the locks on the door, files being locked, and even the computer security. But because it has files of clients and so forth, and any attorney would do the same thing. You would never surrender that computer out of your sight, off your premises. You wouldn't give it to somebody and have them have total access to it. I just don't get. And going in, knowing what's on this computer, to hand it over to somebody. And apparently it's not like it's a family friend or a trusted person that has dealt with the Biden family data for generations. And he doesn't pick it up. According to the agreement, he surrenders it. It's done. He doesn't pick it up. Forfeits it. And when the guy looks at it, he does call the authorities. But he makes copies of the hard drive. And it ends up a copy to Rudy Giuliani. So whatever the thing is, then that was a great move. For me, I'm thinking that's great because you know what? I'm sorry, but we have to be very suspicious of certain members of our federal agencies, only because in the last 4 years, 5 if you count leading up to the election, that they were operatives within, whether you want to call it this deep state or just very partisan politics here. They've altered, members of the FBI have altered documents to continue the investigation against Trump. They have used language that would lessen what they needed to do for Hillary Clinton's criminality. So we know this. So would you totally trust that laptop going into the possession of the FBI and everything on it being investigated? Fortunately, there's probably more than one. We know that Rudy Giuliani has at least one copy of the hard drive, and I'm assuming he backed that up for his own protection as well. But then we find out that there's more to this, that there's a money laundering aspect to this. And then there's even one of the agents that's listed on all the paperwork is really from the agent that works in the sex crimes division of the FBI. So now, what are the pictures allegedly with the 14-year-old girl on there? So there could be multiple levels going on here. But the question is should Joe be running? Should he actually step aside with this legitimate controversy? This isn't made up. This tangible evidence. Unlike anything Trump, there was never anything except fictitious reports hired by the Clinton campaign. And now, through these years of investigations, we find out that Hillary actually started this whole Russia collusion and even the hotel story just to, hey, give me a little cover. I got to create a little cover, a little distraction from my emails. They're focusing too much on those emails that I deleted and the equipment I destroyed. All illegal to do, by the way. But nothing happens. There's no consequence for that. If you or I destroy our emails or our computer devices when they're under subpoena, that is a crime in itself that we'd be facing. No one from the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton campaign, or the Clinton themselves have had to face any consequences for that. So we found out that that was all just, literally just a distraction. I think it kind of got away from her. I don't think she realized that it was going to grab on the way that it did. Now there's a new documentary out, Plot Against the President. It's on Amazon, and it took a little doing to do, and I just ordered it. I ordered the book and loaded it up, and I died to watch it. It really focuses a lot around Nunes, right? His Congressman Nunes really has put this together. So it's going to be interesting. I'm dying to watch it, but we know kind of what happened with all this. But none of it really ever had. It never had. And I said really never had because they created the Steele dossier, but this was absolutely, totally made up. It was just fictitious. It was not real stuff. It was all smoke and mirrors. And we had ranking members of Congress lying to us on a daily basis that there was irrefutable proof, tons of evidence. He's seen it. Tick, 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 boom, right? How many tweets did we see on this? Tick, 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 boom, right? The walls are closing in. What were all of those things that we heard? And it's all nothing. So we have serious corruption with the Biden family. A lot, and like the president said during the debate, a lot of it happened. Well, you were vice president, Joe, and they think you deserve, or the American people deserve, an explanation. Maybe you could do that now. It's uncomfortable for Joe. He lost steam later in that debate. I think he came out strong. I think he was doing really good for a while. And I think he had to hold his temper because he has a temper. What's interesting is Donald Trump always gets pinned as this nasty person. But Joe's the one that's calling people dog-faced ponies and challenging them to step outside or behind the barn or to do these push-ups or accusing them to be druggies or on drugs for asking him questions. And he never gets called on that. So sick of the, you know me, come on man, you know me. And everybody says, you know, oh, well, you know Joe, that's Joe. Why does he get a pass on everything? How long can you run on that? You know me. When the evidence is here, folks. So we've got it now. So it's one thing. You could, and I'll go along with this. You could say, well, you know, how verifiable is this? Guess what? It's very verifiable. I'm watching the CNNs of the world, and they're not covering the story. And they're laughing, the talking heads are laughing, saying, oh yeah, nobody even knows about this laptop. Because you don't cover it as a story. You have no journalistic integrity whatsoever. And they're in a tough position. Well, for them, I don't think it should be a no-brainer. If they cover the story legitimately, I'm not saying go nuts on it, just cover it like you're supposed to cover news, the facts, it really will tank their candidate. And if they tank their candidate, Joe loses. But they come out with a shred of integrity, I mean journalistic integrity. And if they don't cover it at all, and Joe loses anyway, so they lost their candidate and they have no integrity at this point, and they just further the low opinion that's already existed or exists about them. So what do? I'm always for do your job. Do your job. And it comes back, and it's not the media's fault that the DNC puts up these bad candidates. What is up with that, folks? In 2016, Hillary Clinton was probably the worst candidate they could have put up, given the millions of Democrats in the country that they could have chosen from. But they chose her for whatever reason. It's her job, I mean, her time, her chance, her turn. Or she knows enough about enough people that they have to say it's your turn. I don't know. Why? Why pick Hillary? Because I'm telling you, if they had put the right candidate up in 2016, someone could have beat Donald Trump. I think it's almost impossible this time around because he's done in 4 years what Joe Biden couldn't do in 47. And he brought that up over and over again at the debate. Well, why didn't you do it? I'm going to. Well, why didn't you do it? And Trump made a good point. This isn't a long time ago. You were in the administration as the second in command less than 4 years ago. And you were in the Senate for 3 decades plus before that. So why didn't you? Matter of fact, what you did do, a lot of media wants to gloss over. At least he did, I'll give him credit for this, in the debate, at least he said, referring to the 94 crime bill and some of the other legislation that he backed, that it was a mistake. He made a mistake. Good for you, Joe. Good. I'm glad you said that. Because it does take the wind out of it a little bit, right? Because recognizing it was a mistake and moving forward, that was good, Joe. But you can't explain the systematic selling of your office and access by your family members. And the Biden campaign is very clever as to their denials about what he did or didn't do. They don't come out and say the emails are straight out a lie. The computer does exist. The emails exist. The pictures exist. The texts exist. They're there. So now Tony, now this is the part here, because Tony Babalewski, who is one of Hunter Biden's partners, which I think is a curious job to have, considering one of his partners is already in prison and the other one is awaiting sentencing. Well, he sees his name being attached to this. And the guys are, from what we can tell, right, stand-up guy, reputable guy. I mean, he has to get involved with this company. And for all we know, he thinks it's going to be a good opportunity. He's Navy guy, respected, left honorably, decorated. Has no reason to think that there's nothing wrong with getting into bed with Hunter and a couple of his buddies. But then he sees money coming in from China, which is fine because their business is a partnership from China. That's where the name comes from. Right? It's a Chinese name, and they use hawk, sing hawk, and the hawk is supposed to be, I guess, Bo's favorite animal. So a little nod to Bo Biden. They used hawk as part of it. So anyway, they have the company, and he sees that as the money is dumped into this company in America from China, Hunter is vacuuming it out, sucking it out as fast as it's coming in. And there's $100,000 shopping spree for the aunt and uncle and him. And then another chunk of money gets sent over just specifically for a $100-and-something-thousand car. And Tony Babalewski starts to think, this does not smell right. So he starts to take steps to distance himself from it, and he starts to keep records. And then this stuff starts to break. The laptop, which, by the way, was in the possession of the FBI back in December of 19, so prior to the impeachment proceedings. They have it. And so does Rudy Giuliani. So that means the president has it too. And this guy's name is getting attached to it. And he does, I think, the right thing, and good for him. He takes a stand. And he says, all right, look, I'm not involved with any wrongdoing here. Matter of fact, I think this is wrong. This is what I've done to step away from it. He holds a press conference. I mean, first of all, when it breaks, by the way, the CNNs of the world, right, MSNBC, they don't do their job. They don't verify it. Fox did. And I know the people on the left and the Democrats listening right now, Fox, it's still a news organization. And they still do a good job. And if they are slanted, maybe so. But are you kidding me when you talk about CNN? But the point is, they did the simple thing. They took the name off the emails and called the guy up and asked him, is this you? Yeah, it's me. Are these your emails? Yep. Can you verify that these were all what they appear to be, written by who they say they're written, sent when they were sent, and the context is all, yep, verified everything. And then before the debate Thursday night, he holds a press conference that mainstream media won't cover. They can't cover it. They cover it, it's news. And they're back in their position, they got to protect Joe at all costs. And he says straight out, everything on those emails, everything that's released, it's all true, because I have my copies. Remember, he's on these emails, so his computers, his devices, his accounts have those emails. That's how it works, folks. When they get sent, they're sent to all of them. It's in the buffers, it's in the mailbox, he has them. So you can't alter them, you can't say they don't exist, he has them all. But more importantly, he's able to attest to the content of them and that they're accurate, right down yet putting Joe Biden himself in the room with him firsthand and the partners. Wait a minute, didn't Joe tell us he never, ever spoke not only about Hunter's business dealings or his brothers, but never the partners, even though there's a picture of him playing golf with the partners. Now Tony Babaluski puts Joe Biden in the room, having a conversation and attesting to the fact that Joe not only knows about everything, but Hunter has to get his sign-off. And that the reference in the email to the big guy is, in fact, Joe Biden, our former vice president. So what's the overall game plan on this? Is this to get Joe over the finish line a week from Tuesday, which he won't win the Electoral College. The Electoral College, Trump's going to run away with. They're going to try to do it in the courts and ballots continuing to show up for literally weeks after the election. We'll put a pin in that for a second. Say they do manage to get Joe Biden sworn in. How long can he last with an investigation like this if it isn't shut down? But it's got to get big. It's too big to shut down, as I hope it is. Wouldn't that be a sad thing to say about this country? The final step to a banana republic if Joe Biden happens to become president, that all of this criminality is just evaporates. So he doesn't survive. He has to step out of the Oval Office, and Kamala Harris takes on. Is that the whole goal at this point? Just get Joe over the finish line so Kamala can take it? Because it certainly lines up with Nancy Pelosi trying to get the House to have the power of the 25th Amendment to remove a president they feel unfit. That'll do it for this segment right there. We'd have to take a break. We're going to check in. I don't know what we got going. Where we do? Oh, Find a Forever Home for Teddy's friends. Let's see, I think one of the dogs is still need a home and some other things, and we'll be back on the other side here on the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. How long do I have?
You got 5 minutes, 6 minutes?
Enough to make a coffee? Enough to get coffee? Long enough to get coffee?
Yeah. Yeah, this segment's out with Joe. If you want to.
Oh, okay. That Dawn? All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour here on the Joe Mangiacotti Show, AM 830 WCRN, your affiliates, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Coming up at 7 o'clock, Steve Hall, candidate for state senate, will join us in studio. We'll talk about his race and just a little bit about his positions here in the Commonwealth. We'll also tap into some of his knowledge concerning Holyoke. He'll give you his background, but he has a background with nursing facilities, nursing homes. That's his day job, as they say, right? His background and profession is in that. So I'll get back into the ballots and harvesting and so forth, but I did want to also point out, and this is something that I can't believe that mainstream media, again, are glossing over the historic peace agreements happening in the Middle East. Historic peace agreements between Israel and the Sudan just happened. We're talking about 3 major agreements in 2 months happening after a quarter of a century break from any kind of movement there. And Donald Trump has been nominated 4 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, legitimately nominated 4 times. And Nancy Pelosi refers to this as actually a distraction. That darn Donald Trump bringing peace to the Middle East just to distract us. From what, Nancy? The first president since Ronald Reagan not to start a new war, to bring troops back, and to approach this by an angle which he was told would not work and couldn't do, but that fresh blood and that fresh perspective decided to do it how a businessman would do it. The more I see Trump work, the more I wouldn't want to face him off in New York development, I guess. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Dawn's been waiting patiently. Hey, good morning, Dawn. You look marvelous. Good, good. You got a little chilly, finally. I like a chill in the morning, yeah. Yep. Well, he hasn't been talking about it like he did back in the primaries. We certainly do need it, but it doesn't detract from the fact that I don't forget him saying that Francis O'Rourke is going to be his gun czar, and he's coming after our guns, specifically the AR-15. Wait a minute. Wasn't somebody said something about that? Well, we have the guns, meaning the conservatives, in the left response to that was, well, we have nuclear weapons. I mean, does that mean that? Oh, yeah, people thought he meant coyotes. How did, right? You talk about that there were politicians who got confused because they're trying to figure out, they're thinking the four-legged animal opposed to the criminal trafficking person. Well, you know, Don, who was the one, he's still in Congress, I'm drawing a blank, where he got concerned when we were talking about the base in Guam, that the island would tip over if we put too much. It was a black rep, yeah. He's the same one that pretty much tried to get an impeachment like every week since Donald Trump was elected. He'd propose an impeachment. Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, actually, any of the police agencies can issue an LTC as well, which means, do you know that we have just about 500 police agencies in the Commonwealth? When you start to add all the cities and towns, then you add all the universities and colleges, and then you have other special type police, right? The environment. So we're at almost 500 police agencies in the state of Massachusetts. That's cray-cray. Right, right. Right. It's a pretty crazy, yeah, yeah. 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 No, it's a bizarre situation in this state because they've stacked the deck against you if you are looking to do it the right way. And this is the thing that's so aggravating with this when it comes to the Second Amendment, though, is the politicians, and especially the ones who just aren't, and I'm not going to call them idiots or stupid, or I'm just saying they're just not knowledgeable or educated themselves on firearms and firearm laws and even the Second Amendment. And that's where we get these statements about this whole, you know, well, that holds 22 clips or something. And they have no difference between a round and a clip. They don't understand an AR-15 exactly. And so they say these things that people who, you know, take a little time to know what they're talking about. Yeah, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're just not educated. They're ignorant to the facts of that. But they continue to say we need these laws. And the biggest thing that's escaping them is your problem isn't with the people who are following the laws. If this is a problem, why aren't you going into Detroit and Chicago and D.C. and these cities where 22 people are shot, 32 people shot one weekend, right? 9-year-olds, the big kids getting shot while they're sleeping in their bed. Why aren't you in there taking the guns, the illegal guns, away from those people? But instead you're making laws to crack down on the people who legally have done everything. They're not breaking the law. The problem with it, because if we, the people who legally carry and license and register our guns and go to the range to practice gun safety and keep ourselves sharp with it, if we were the problem, you would know it. You would know it. There are hundreds of millions of guns owned privately in this country with billions of rounds in people's gun safes. If we felt like that, if we were off the rails and doing it, you would know it. The streets would be littered with bodies. They're not the problem. You can't control the criminal with the weapon. Go clean up Chicago and Detroit and D.C. and Minneapolis. Now we got Minneapolis right there. Go. Why aren't you taking all of those? And what about the POS who had the handgun that was about to shoot Kyle Rittenhouse in the head when Kyle shot the arm holding the pistol that was going to shoot him in the head? He still hasn't been arrested. Kyle legally carrying the gun. Kyle is legally carrying the gun, shoots in self-defense. He's in jail. The guy who illegally has the pistol and was about to shoot him and telegraph the murder, by the way. We're going to cranium him and shoot him in the head. He's still walking the street. How does that equal the blind lady with the scale? Yep. Mm. No. Yeah. Yeah. I got it. Well. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. No, it's something else. But I gotta run, Don, we've got some lines booked up. Thank you for the call, always a pleasure, always interested. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000 to reach it. We got a text in from 508, is the Bobolinsky revelation going to be buried? Good question. It's not being exposed to the degree that it should be exposed, I can tell you that. And it would be very interesting to see just how far the investigation goes if for some reason Joe Biden was to be sworn in as President of the United States. Let's go to the phones. Mark's been waiting patiently. Good morning, Mark. You look marvelous. What's happening? Yep. Yeah, Joe Paglioli, he goes by Joey Bags, yeah. Yep. I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. I am. Oh yeah. Yep. Yes, I have. Yep. Okay, good. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yep. Yeah. 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 Agreed. No, agreed. And that's why I made the point earlier, Mark, that the FBI, according to the receipt, took possession of that hard drive in December of 2019. So they had it during the entire impeachment proceedings. They had it. And they should know, because what's unclear to me though, Mark, is did the FBI know at the time they went and picked that up in December that a copy was made, at least one, and Rudy Giuliani has the mirror image of it, and that there's probably another one, because I would be very surprised if Rudy didn't take the copy he got, immediately make another copy and put that in a secure location. I mean, wouldn't you do that? That's the first thing I would have done. So the FBI knows that this stuff is out there. They know it's authentic. And from what I'm understanding, there's 40,000 emails, 1,000 texts, in literally thousands of pictures. Thousands of pictures. And ranging from him partying, smoking the crack pipe to, you know, inappropriate sexual type stuff. Look, whatever on that's sad. But those emails and documents, they outline. Yeah, it's criminal. All right. Well, I'm talking about the Mark. I'm thinking of when I said it's sad. I was thinking about his drug use that he's got wrapped up into that. That's sad. No, the alleged pictures of with the 14-year-old girl. That's criminal. That's straight up criminal. That's not a debate. That's not Russian disinformation. Look, that is not going to happen. That's so tired. And Joe tried to slip that in the debate. Remember that? You saw that Thursday night. He tried. Oh, that's right. And Trump, I loved it. I mean, Trump's like, really, Joe? Really? We're going to do the Russian information thing again? You're going to try? You know, look, it didn't really work out for you the first time, and you're going to go back to that well? Come on. Look, there's no question about it. This is a legitimate computer. The data is legitimate. The question is, what happens between now and a week from Tuesday? Should Joe Biden step down? I mean, should he just save the country the embarrassment? A conservative probably would. You know what I'm saying? It probably would. The right thing to do if you're Joe Biden is to say, yeah, you know what? I think the best thing for me to do is just step away and handle this and not put the country through this. That would be the right thing to do. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. First of all, Mark, if the FBI, yeah, you got it, there is. Because if the FBI had a picture of you or me with an underage girl, would already be in a holding cell at minimum. Would be arrested, and if anything, maybe would be out on house arrest with an ankle bracelet. You see what I'm saying? It would have moved very swiftly. It would have moved swiftly. But you're right. Because we've allowed it. Because we've allowed it. It's time to revolt, and it's time to set it straight. You know what? We can do that a week from Tuesday, people. The first step is to vote every SOB in there that's been part of this swamp right the hell out of office. Put I got it. I got it, Mark, but we're against the clock. Thank you for the call. And I agree 100%. He should be asking for some results and quicker than this. That will do it for this hour, folks. So we'll take a break. We'll be back on the other side with Stephen Hall, candidate for State Senate here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey, buddy. We'll go see Steve. Hey, Steve. Who's that? Who's that? Who's that, huh? Here we go. Let's go. Go ahead. Go say hi.
Hey, Teddy, how's it going, buddy?
Hi, guys.
How you doing,
Come on in. I don't know if we're still on shaking hands, so.
We're in healthcare, we know better.
So you
You want me on this side?
yeah, because this one is crackly. There's two chairs there, so if you want to pull one out, or you can take Teddy's chair. But there's two over here for you. That headset's plugged in. Do you need a headset?
Sure,
All right.
I'll listen in.
So, I think you'll be out of camera shot there, but.
Are you on here?
If you want to put your wife in early.
All right, let's throw her in.
Now, what we do here is apply this adapter. So you guys can listen in the same volume. There you go. Okay, comfortable.
One side in, Jan?
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, you probably have to, can you do that without, because if we have to put you over here, we can put you over here if
I
that's
can go over on the
uncomfortable.
other side.
All right,
I don't want to disrupt.
No, this is fine.
you got it?
I got
You
it.
good?
No, I'm good, real
Good,
careful.
okay, as long as you're comfortable.
Is that close enough?
Yeah, yeah,
Or you want, or should it be this way?
yeah, just like that, get it to,
There we go, that's perfect.
and actually what we do so that your gravity works, that's all.
Right there.
Just adjust it.
Okay.
All right, let me, pull a couple things up here. This is kind of your website, just on a push card?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, this is for on air too, but how is the campaign going? The money,
It's going good, better this year. It's
Better.
been a tough year for.
this is your
fundraising.
second run, right?
Second run,
And
yeah.
of course, running with the pandemic, yada yada,
Mhm.
distancing going on the whole
Been-
time,
Yeah, been different.
yeah.
And the whole mail-in voting.
Yeah, I want to get into the mail-in voting. Holly Robichaud just wrote a nice article. You put your headphones on. All right, folks. All right, welcome back to hour 2 of the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN and our affiliate stations out in the western part of the state. Don't forget, we're live streaming on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN. You can take us anywhere. And we're also streaming on our show Facebook page, Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I. So, Mark, that's like Joe Pags, right? Aglio, Joe Mangiacotti, Joe Pags, Joe Mangi. See where that comes from? Anyway, the point is the audio is streaming on our Facebook page. There is a camera in studio, and joining me now in studio is Stephen Hall, who is a candidate for the Mass State Senate. First of all, good morning, Steve. Welcome on in.
Good morning, it's great to be here.
And your wife, Jan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. So, first of all, tell people, what's the name of the district you're running in?
It's the Worcester, Hampden, Hampshire, and Middlesex districts.
It's a long one,
It
right?
runs from Charlton over to Munson on the south side, and from Ashby over to Athol on the north side, right to New Hampshire.
Okay, and currently Ann Goby is the sitting senator.
That's
And
correct,
How many,
yes.
how many years or terms has she been in?
She's been senator for 6 years and 14 as a rep, so 20 years. I think there becomes a time where you lose touch with folks.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that, whether it's state or federal. You know, I mean, there's no term limits. I mean, the response to that, when you bring that up, Steve, right, is we have term limits. People can vote you out every time. Well, if that's the case, then level the playing field, because the power of the incumbency is very great, especially in the federal offices. But it's certainly there in the state office, right? You've got to you can make all kinds of you got name recognition, and you can do all kinds of things on the taxpayers' dime that the challenger can't do.
The rules are heavily in their favor. They've made it that way, and it continues to get even tougher.
Yeah.
So we've got. I am a strong believer in term limits, but at least let's level the playing field.
Well, the thing about this is the 2020 elections, whether federal, the state elections, just elections in general, because COVID-19 has changed the way we campaign. So for years, since the onset of campaigning, it's been a press the flesh type of strategy. You literally knocked on people's doors, you shook hands, you hugged babies, you went to the rubber chicken circuit, dinner and met people, and you were in crowds. You can't do that. We haven't been able to do that this time around. So talk about a little bit of how that has changed campaigning and how that shifted around it. It affected, first of all, the signature process, correct?
It did. I had gotten signatures just before COVID hit, so I was good to go, but it did affect those folks. And certainly it was really difficult to get to the voters. There was nothing going on, and you certainly couldn't go to their door. I started in December, and I had hit 3,200 doors myself personally. I had a goal to hit 20,000 doors, and yet that all came to an end. So we had to change strategy and look at it a different way. When with social media, of course, radio, TV ads, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that took money,
Yeah.
which normally small campaigns like mine don't have. So
Right.
it was some real creativity.
And what about Ann Govey? She has a war chest, I'm assuming?
Very small war chest. We
Okay.
actually raised 4 times more than she did this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think is she taking you seriously? Is she in the fight, or is she just assuming she's going to pull it off again?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Have you guys debated?
She refuses to debate. We had a debate 2 years ago, and we had one debate 2 years ago. We've been pushing her for it. We sent her a certified letter. I know other media have been asking for it, and she just not only refuses, she just doesn't respond to it, that is not fair to her constituents.
I was
voters.
just going to say,
Yeah.
I'd have more respect for her to respond and say, no, I'm not going to do it, because what she's saying is, no, I have nothing to worry about. You're not worth my time. I don't consider you a threat. You may not agree with it, but you can respect that. Not responding to me, that's just, to me, that's just not right, because what are you doing? You're a sitting state senator. Respond. You owe it to the constituents. You owe it to the challenger. That's the system. To just not respond, besides being rude, is I think just beneath the office. That's too bad. That's too bad. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the ballot. The ballot, just ballots, has been such an issue, right? I mean, we've got this whole change-up this time around in the absentee versus the mail-in ballots, and the argument that's going here. Where do you sit on that? I don't know how much you listen to the show. Here's my thing on this. Look, we have had a process. If you didn't want to go to the polls, physically go to the polls that day, there's been a system in place for a long time. It's called the absentee ballot. And there's a process. You contact the appropriate clerk for wherever you're registered, let them know that. They usually ask you, some places ask you a question, some don't. They just simply do it automatically. You get it, there's a witness signature and a process, and you send it back. They send it to you only to the address that is, in fact, you're registered to vote from, that you're actually eligible to vote, that you're alive because they're talking to you, right? All these, it was fine. But all of a sudden, we get pushed this mass mailing ballot system to us when we didn't need it. Because if you didn't want to go to the polls, the system already existed. So why put this mass mailing ballots on? What have we seen, Steve? We've seen ballots being lost and thrown away and mislabeled, and mistakes being made, thrown in dumpsters and water creeks. And I mean, I can sit here, I could Google for the next half hour, I could pull up story after story of the problems with this. Why did we have to do all that? Why couldn't we have just let people who didn't want to go? We go to the grocery store, we go to the pharmacy, we go to the bank, we can go vote. Put on the mask, keep your social distancing. There's no reason not to safely vote. But if you're 60, 70, 80 years old, just file for the absentee. Already in place.
Or go vote early.
Vote early. Point is, all of this was already in place.
It was. All it does is goes back to leaning in favor of the incumbent. We now push the election up 1 month. So imagine if I didn't have a primary fight. But imagine you're in a primary fight, and then you have to turn the corner. Within 1 month, you have an election. Your election begins, because it began in early October.
Yeah.
It's unfair, it's wrong, but it's the incumbents making it difficult for anyone to overturn their seat.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit. We'll get back into this, but let's first let listeners know who may not be familiar with you a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll get into why you're running and what you're going to do there. What's your background? What have you done for a living to feed your family and to raise your family? How have you put food on the table for the last 28 years or so?
Well, I have certainly a unique background where I began my career as a machinist after going to trade school. We raised our family, two kids, and we now have 5 grandchildren. And along the way, I became a truck driver, a business owner, and then eventually invented something for long-term care for nursing homes, and fell in love with service to people. So that's where I went into healthcare, and have really been a specialist in turning around troubled homes where with care is not very good, and improving care. Improving basically their star rating, and it has been certainly I think a calling. And that's why I get into this, because I see something that needs to be fixed. And as someone who has a long history of doing this, I want to get into politics and do the same. It's one of the things where I don't need to be senator because of my ego. I need to be senator because I want to make a change and make a difference.
What did you invent?
It was an anti-rollback for wheelchairs. Didn't work out. We got beat up by big millionaires, but learned a lot along the way about law and what's important in life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's great. And we should try. I mean, it's always build a better mousetrap, right? That's American dream. Good for you for that. So you got involved with nursing homes and care facilities.
Yes.
You got to really understand them and fix them. And let's take a little bit of a detour for a moment, because I'd like to get, especially since you're running for a state senate seat, I mean, your feelings on the whole Holyoke Soldiers Home situation and what happened there. And we look now, whether it's New York, where it was just criminal that dumping COVID patients into these nursing homes, and here in Massachusetts, what went on at Holyoke was also, I think, criminal, at least criminal negligence. What's your take on Holyoke?
I was absolutely appalled. I looked and I couldn't. We looked up Bennett Walsh's license, for example. This man's not licensed. The man who runs the nursing home, we have federal and state laws that require someone to be licensed, yet for some reason our politicians here in Massachusetts think that federal and state law doesn't apply to them. And being a nursing home administrator, licensed nursing home administrator number 5090, I had to go through a lot to get my license. I have to go through a lot every year to keep it, and it's under a lot of scrutiny. It is the highest, it is the most regulated industry in the United States, beyond hospitals and nuclear power plants. Yet, for some reason, our politicians think that they can just put somebody in there who doesn't have a license to take care of 250 lives, or around 250 lives. I was shocked.
So the question is, who is this guy? Who is he related to? Who did he donate to? I mean, how do you land that job if you're not qualified for it?
Good question. But he was put in there. It was a political position to take care of 250 lives with a really special area. It's like putting someone in a tractor trailer truck who never went through training.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our politicians did, and they're responsible for the deaths at Holyoke.
Wow. And what's the count at Holyoke now? Because the death toll seems to keep rising, or it did for a while. I don't know if it's all straightened out. What's the deal? What's the status of it?
From what I understand, they have things under control, which is great. But it's too bad it took so long.
Yeah.
An unlicensed, someone unlicensed running a place like that, it's crazy.
Well, when this was breaking, and I was covering the stories and reading these stories, and you're finding out from these interviews that the staff themselves are being switched between COVID floors and non-COVID floors without the proper PPE, and the sanitation happening. You've got non-nursing staff being told to start calling the family's patient, the patient's family rather, and having them switch the end-of-life orders. Why would you do that? They didn't want to send them to the hospital. We could basically convincing the families to put a DNR in place and let them just expire at the facility. Why is that happening? What would the goal there? Not to, is it a step that the governor's office, did they order not to overwhelm the hospitals and let them die in Holyoke? I mean, it's scary.
You know, I think all this stuff goes back to we have politicians making decisions instead of the experts. I've been saying this all along, where we have too many. I've learned as a healthcare leader that I don't have to have all the answers. In the hospitals, in the nursing homes, you have the CNAs, you have the nurses, you have the maintenance man, you have the housekeepers who know what's wrong and probably know how to fix it.
Right.
You just have to empower them. Teachers in Massachusetts tell me, we know what's wrong with education, we know how to fix it, but no one will listen to us. It's about time our politicians, our senator, listens to those folks
Right.
on how to fix this stuff. And I think that's what's certainly what happened with the whole COVID response, is the decisions were made by politicians instead of healthcare leaders.
Right. So, this is your second time running for this seat, correct?
It is, yes.
So you tried in 18,
Yes.
and what happened in that race?
It was one of the closest races in Massachusetts. For somebody who was a non-politician, I was not in politics, just somebody, a businessman who saw a need, saw something I just can't continue to watch
Right.
in good conscience.
Yeah.
And what's happening to Massachusetts, and same thing in 2020. I promised I would do it again,
Sure.
and then and here I am, because I just can't sit back and watch what's happening to our state.
Right. And what's Senator Goby's, I mean, is she effective in there, but not in the areas you want, or do you deem her just totally ineffective in that office?
Well, I mean, just her stances. I mean, we've got another tax coming. We've got the Transportation Climate Initiative tax,
Yeah,
which is
gonna
going
get to that.
which is going to devastate the state and going to hurt people very bad. We've got the whole sanctuary state. Her co-sponsoring a sanctuary state bill. Now the Democrats want to give the folks driver's license. And it seems like every move that she takes just is completely opposite of what I would do. And voted for the red flag bill. Same deal. We had stuff in place that would prevent issues with guns, and yet for some reason the politicians think they have to pile on and just make these feel-good legislation,
Yeah.
which has no place. We don't need to pile on regulations.
Sure.
We need to fix the problems.
Let's talk about a couple of these issues that are concerning you. First of all, let's talk about the immigration issue, or more specifically sanctuary cities and sanctuary state. Every study says, that the legal immigration, and we make it very much a point on this show to make the distinction between legal and illegal immigrants. They're not the same thing, folks. They just aren't. We are a nation of legal immigrants. I'm only second generation born here. All four grandparents immigrated to this country, went through Ellis Island. I did the whole process and had sponsors and all that you have to do. That's what the country is made up of. We are a sovereign nation with sovereign borders, and without borders, we're not a nation. And part of having a sovereign border is protecting it and knowing who's crossing it. So that being said, we know that illegal immigration is costing Massachusetts somewhere in the vicinity of $2 billion with a B dollars a year. What would you do to keep us from becoming a sanctuary city, and do you support the president's idea that sanctuary states don't get federal monies for breaking the law?
I agree with the president. I think we have 250,000, it's estimated we have 250,000 illegals in Massachusetts. Now let me go back. I've been called, I came out again recently about this. Well, that's been my stance all along, but been called a bigot, racist.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, I work with legal immigrants, folks who come here on the green card in healthcare. There are a lot of them come here from all over the world. They're very good people and doing work that Americans sometimes don't want to do. great people. There is a huge difference between an illegal immigrant and a legal immigrant. There's a lot of background checks they have to go through, and they're good people. $2 billion, 250,000 of those people here in Massachusetts, while we have our roads deteriorating, while we have our seniors struggling to heat their homes, and it has to end. We cannot do this anymore, and you can't tell me those folks are taking good jobs. They're not taking good jobs, but if they're doing anything, they're artificially bringing the wages down for hardworking people.
Yeah, and that is a problem, because and I know we get this in the federal level speaking, right? We get this, we can't crack down the whole agricultural system counts on this. Well, look, we do have day workers, right? We have papers that allow people to come across the border every day into the country and they work. I mean, that happens. Again, the legal way of doing anything. What I have a problem, and I think what you're saying you have a problem with, is well, let's bring it up because it became part of something with the debate the other night, the coyotes. And we're talking about the criminal coyotes who are into human trafficking, not the damn animal that people thought the president was talking about. But these are people, who are paying ridiculous amounts of money tens of thousands of dollars to be brought over the border. Just the human trafficking aspect of that, and the statistics for the number of women who are sexually assaulted with coyote use, that kind of thing. Those are not who we're talking. Those people are the illegals that aren't coming in the right way. And the president made reference to this the other night, because what we found at the border is their cartels were placing children to use the children as the prop, right, to let them enter. And Joe Biden was telling us, oh no, parents brought them over. But we know that's not true. As soon as they started implementing instant DNA tests at the border, what happened, right? So we know that this is a problem. Yet legal immigration, we do need. We absolutely do need it. And our immigration system says that we want people with unique skills and people who will come here and make things better and assimilate. So we can't be this. Now, as far as the driver's license, what is the justification for giving driver's licenses to somebody who doesn't even legally exist in the Commonwealth?
I can't comprehend why they would do that. Someone who can't follow laws anyways, we're going to give them it's dangerous. Let me go back to farm workers though.
Sure.
I've spoken to a lot of farmers in my district. There are a lot of them there. They do not support this illegal immigration. The folks that come and work the farms are folks that come here legally. And so we have to dispel that myth. That's not true. When it comes to these driver's licenses, it's absolutely absurd. Again, they're pandering, I guess, to their voters, but I can't, go back to the mail-in vote. Are these their voters? That's why they're pandering to them? Because I can't understand why. It's time we need to stop this. We need to take care of legal citizens, and let's turn these folks into ice. Let's get back to Massachusetts being a law-abiding state. And when it comes to, you're talking about coyotes and sex trafficking, this isn't just down at the border either.
No.
This is happening here in Massachusetts.
Yep.
We have sex trafficking, and we're one of the worst states for it, is what they say, here in Massachusetts. This has got to stop. We're abusing children and women right here in Massachusetts, and we're turning a blind eye to this.
Well, on that note, people always refer to the immigration issue as a border state issue, and it hasn't been a border state issue for decades. Illegal immigration, the sex trafficking, drug trafficking, the cartels and the gangs, they aren't limited to the border states. It is in Massachusetts, it's in New England, it's in all states, right? And we saw a flare-up of attention to MS-13 during the earlier Trump administration because he made reference to it. And you got the liberal media acting like they've never heard of MS-13, and Pelosi actually referring to them as, good people. It's a brutal gang. It's a brutal gang. And we've seen the cartels infiltrate on the southern border and you don't see in national news, Steve, the home invasions, kidnapping, and the crimes that do take place in Arizona and Texas, and not so much as Texas. I think Texas has less of a tolerance for it. But it happens. You gotta go search for it, people. But if you take some time and go start Googling and searching the news stories, and it's amazing it doesn't get the coverage nationally like it should. But coming back to Massachusetts, let's talk about, because we've heard all this national discussion about defunding police, and they tried to get a little cute with redirecting, funds, reallocating funds. That's still defunding. How do we handle that situation? Because we're seeing so much being done literally done by mob rule. And mob rule is not rule of law. Mob rule is called mob rule for a reason. It doesn't, we see an incident happen, Steve, and the mob instantly wants to, never mind arrest and jail, say, a police officer involved in a shooting instantly, but they won't even want to do worse to them people, right? When even Kyle Rittenhouse was taken into custody, there was social media movement to try to locate where he was because they wanted to literally go lynch him. That's mob rule. Yet we have a justice system, and it's slow moving, but it's slow moving for a reason. It's all the steps have to be taken. An investigation, an indictment, a trial, a sentencing, all that needs to take place. And we can't govern by mob rule. So what do we do about the situation here in Massachusetts? And should we defund or reallocate any of the funds to our police and first responders?
Well, first of all, we need the rules written by the police. This overreaction by our legislators was, again, there was no involvement from the police when they made this defund move, and completely wrong. We need. I speak to many chiefs in my district, or in the district I hope to be senator in, and they're frustrated with what's happening because no one asked for their input. Mm-hmm. And if anyone knows, go back to what I'm talking about. If anyone knows what the problems are and how to fix it, it's the police chiefs. But they didn't ask them. That's the first problem. But we certainly don't need to fund them. Crime, it seems to me, is on the rise. I go back to, I live right on the border of Sturbridge, border of Connecticut and Sturbridge, and there are gangs coming up now from Connecticut, from Hartford, coming up and breaking the homes and houses and right through much of the district. And this has got to end. We need these police. We need them to be strong, and we need this crime to stop. We need this nonsense to stop. We need to stop pandering to these folks and start cracking down on crime. And I'm going to be pushing for that when I get there to Beacon Hill.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that the police should have a little bit more say into this, and for politicians to start deciding what tactics the police can use without any consultation doesn't make any sense. All the tactics that they use are going to be needed at one point or another, but we do have to take a break. It's time for case files from the LPDAM, Licensed Private Detectives Association in Massachusetts. Our guest in studio is Steve Hall, who is a candidate for State Senate in the seat currently held by Ann Goby, and it goes all the way from up in Winchendon down to Holland and Monson, Rutland, all the way out to Hardwick and Petersham. I mean, it's that quarter there of Massachusetts. But you can get more at electsteve.org. Go to electsteve.org or go to our Facebook page, and there are links there. We'll be back in just a moment, right after Case Files from the LPDAM. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. All right. Where do you want to go now with this?
Well, I think Transportation Climate Initiative would be good.
All right, TJM. Because actually, there was a Mass Fiscal Alliance sent me a response to Tax Foundation report. Oh, that's unemployment. There was one for the TCI. There we go. TCI support. Fiscal Alliance made the following statement in response to the Ethan Allen Institute's poll of 600 likely Vermont voters revealing the deep unpopularity of the Transportation and Climate Initiative in the Green Mountain State. Let me see if I have.
And there was actually something I shared, I think you shared it too, is, that I had shared from an environmental group actually, about TCI and what it entails.
Tax Coalition pens letter outlining continued concerns with ill-conceived tax scheme.
The plan is to reduce it
12
by,
Mid-Atlantic and New England states opposed to the Transportation and Climate Initiative.
the plan is until we have an 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050, but they're gonna do it incrementally. So, which means that it starts with gasoline and diesel right away, and it works in the home heating oil by 2030.
Well, like everything else, this is taking accountability to the legislature out too, just like they wanted to tie the gas increases to an index, so they never have to vote or answer for it again. And this is, again, and I don't know what gets into state legislators when they get elected, that they become crazy to raise taxes all the time. Like, what do they do to them that makes them just try to suck as much money out of individuals as they can? And don't they have to pay taxes too? But then you think about it, I mean, they get reimbursed for every mile they drive, and they get allowances for it, especially if you live, if you live out in the western part of the state, you're getting $100 a day, right? Even if you don't go to the state house, you're still claiming it.
Sure.
So you look at all that, and you go, okay, but, I mean, nobody goes up there and they get a bug to cut spending, right? It's only a bug to increase revenue. It's instead of this, and again, we the state, like we the country, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem, you know? I mean, look what happened with revenue when the tax cuts went into place. Revenue actually went up because people stimulated the market and more money in their pocket. And, you know, the sales tax money that comes in, the car industry, the car industry's 200% up right now. Who would have thought during a pandemic, right, at this lockdown, the car sales would be out through the roof?
People have more money, I guess, from that.
Well, one of the best signs I saw during the first, was a car dealership, used car dealership said, come on, low money down. We know you have at least $1,200. It was a great sign on the thing, Nope, your commercial's on, Teddy. Teddy's commercial's on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Have you seen my video, some of the 15-second clips?
No, I got your website up.
Yeah. You might have to go to Facebook, I don't know if my guy put it out there.
What do you do, like talk to the camera and?
Yeah, but there's one where it's actually Ann Gubby's own words explaining TCI. And she says, you call the fee, you're gonna call the tax, you're gonna be paying more.
Yeah.
But she's explaining to a green group.
All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on the Sunday edition here on AM 830 WCRN, and of course our affiliate in the western part of Massachusetts. So you have some people probably listening in your district or district to be on our AM 730 signal as well. Of course, live streaming on TuneIn and as well as our Facebook page at Joe Mangiacotti Show. The audio's there. So several ways to listen. You know what? If you tell Alexa to play WCRN, guess what? She will do that. pretty cool. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Line is open and available. 508-871-7000. In studio guest is Steve Hall, who is running for state senate in that Worcester, Middlesex, Hampden, whatever it is, district. It's that quarter in Massachusetts, just a little west. And you can go check it out at electsteve.org, electsteve.org if you want to see where it is. But if Ann Goby's your current state senator, that's the district that Steve is challenging her in. And there's a lot of reasons to challenge incumbents. And one of the biggest reasons, I would say, is this, and I got to tell you something, we've talked about this on the show, and it's the Transportation Climate Initiative tax, the TCI tax, as it has become to be known as. And the states that are currently eligible to join TCI, you know, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and the District of Columbia. And this is a tax. This is removing responsibility and accountability from your elected officials. It's just another revenue enhancer, and look, I have always said, Steve, that the most unfair tax to the blue-collar worker, the middle-class guy out there and girl out there, is gas taxes. Because if you are living in an urban area and you don't have a car, and you're, as it's been known, or what it's called, if you're in the system, so if you have housing and welfare and SSI and all of that, the gas tax doesn't have really direct impact on you. And if you're living in the affluent suburban communities and you're above, you know, you're upper middle class or above that, the $60, $70 a week in extra gas costs can be absorbed. But the people who can't absorb $50 or $60 a week, you know, another $200 a month in a gas tax, a gas cost being put on you, is that middle class blue collar family. That's the difference between them having, say, cable or not, or taking a summer vacation, or being able to, you know, get some new clothes for school, etc. It goes on and on. So give us first of all, explain to our listeners a little more in depth about what the TCI is, why that's even being discussed, and how it's going to really affect us. I say hurt us, but affect us, Steve.
Well, I agree it's going to hurt us. TCI is basically a tax, is a carbon tax. Senator Goby revealed this back in 2017 in a video about how we're basically, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but we're going to punish you year after year after year until you get in line, where the beatings continue until morale improves, right?
Improves, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
morality improves. And until we get to an 80% reduction in carbon emission here in Massachusetts. So basically, let's go back. Massachusetts is responsible for 1/10 of 1% of the world's carbon emission. Just a little fraction, a tiny little fraction of it. But yet we're going to save the world by taxing you and your parents and your grandparents, and prevent you from heating your home and from turning on the lights or heating your home with electricity. And that's going to go on until we get to 2050, where there's an 80% reduction in this. It kicks in right away with a gas tax, a significant gas and diesel tax. What's that going to do? First of all, on the diesel side, it is going to raise the cost of transportation, transporting goods to the stores. It's going to go right. So there's going to be two taxes. You're going to get taxed on your gasoline to get to work, and then when you get home or get to the grocery store, the price of your goods are going to go up as well because of the diesel tax. It is absolutely absurd. It is another way to make it easier for those folks to give away things to their districts. I think we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem here in Massachusetts. Yes, we have an environment we need to take care of, but doing it on the backs of people who can least afford it is not the answer. And again, we all know that carbon isn't all pollution. So this is completely absurd, but it's going to destroy Massachusetts and the country and make it impossible for our children and grandchildren to live in the state in the coming years.
Yeah. And this is really putting a tax at the beginning end of the process, as well as you having that tax at the pump. So I mean, you're just being taxed on top of tax. And in Mass Fiscal Alliance, they've been working on this a lot, and Paul Carney has been on this show before. This is a scheme in essence. I mean, I certainly think it's a scheme. And almost all eligible states have seen at least one branch of government indicate they oppose joining the TCI scheme for the foreseeable future. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu flat out rejected membership in the program for the state, referring to it as a boondoggle. And TCI expected to release their next month, sometime this fall. So the states which wish to join TCI, well, they need legislative vote and are required to vote next year on this. Now, didn't Baker think he could do this without the legislature? I thought that was an issue, that he thought he could circumvent it.
That's what I thought I heard, but fortunately for him, I guess, is we have, it passed the Senate, it passed the House, and of course, Ann Goby voted for this. I am appalled that she would do this to the people, especially out in this district where you need your vehicles, you need to get your kids to the doctors, you need to go get groceries, and you need to get up and go to work. You're going to do that in the car. But then heating homes, what are you going to do to your home to make it 80% more efficient? While being taxed to do this, it's absurd. But it's passed in both houses. They're conveniently waiting until after the election. They've tabled it until sometime in November, I believe, that they're going to go back to this. I want to be there and be able to stop this.
Yeah. Well, there's according to Mass Fiscal Alliance, it says here that a group of bipartisan lawmakers have also sponsored a bill that would require Governor Baker to seek explicit legislative approval before entering Massachusetts into the multi-state gasoline and diesel tax scheme. And most of the states here in New England are, Sununu has certainly been very vocal about it. According to their release, before the pandemic, Governor Baker was TCI's biggest cheerleader in the 11 states that remain. So the governor described TCI as a regional approach to raising fuel costs. Well, since the pandemic hit, the state's economy has declined, no kidding, right? And unemployment reached record highs. The future of Massachusetts' economic recovery is in jeopardy for an anti-business scheme like this, and it's allowed to go into effect. That's according to Paul Diego and Paul Craney of the Mass Fiscal Alliance. It does not make sense. I think that anytime something takes the accountability out of the elected officials is just a scheme. We've seen our state legislature try to do this with attaching our gas tax to indexes, so they never had a vote for it, right? They didn't have to take a roll call. They didn't have to be a record of them saying, yes, I'm raising a gas tax. They do it, they attach it to the cost of living index and just walk away. And guess what, automatically another few cents goes on to that gas pump. I mean, right now you can go get regular gas under $2. Under $2. And that is great for the economy, right? We saw car sales, right? I can't believe the car sales, Steve, are through the roof, right? Who would have thought that during a lockdown and a pandemic that car sales would be at 160, 170%. And every car dealer I've talked to, I know a lot of friends in the business, I flip a lot of cars, and they're like, this is fantastic. It hasn't been great. It is great in a long time. The bad side of it is used car prices are going up on that. But the point is, that enables a family to take a vacation. It enables families to, get to school, get to work, do all these things. I think the gas tax is a horrible, unequal tax, especially to the middle class families. So the TCI program, I would love to see that stop. Again, it's taxing at the beginning of the process, on top of the tax at the gas pump, and you just don't realize when we go to the gas pump, how much of that, say you're paying $2.20 per gallon of gas, you're getting plus or something. How much of that is actually taxing? How much is actually the cost? There's more taxes going to the Commonwealth than there is going to the gasoline guy, right? The vendor, the guy who owns the station is getting a penny or something on a gallon. They're not making a huge amount of money. That's why they need you to buy a Snickers bar. That's why they need you to do that. So TCI, you'd like to be on Beacon Hill to stop that.
Yeah, and I'd like to emphasize, we talk about gas, but you talk about it's going to be, over time, it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. The taxes are gonna automatically go up. But heating oil, electricity kicks in, so heating your homes is going to be taxed heavily, just like gasoline.
Yeah.
And gasoline's gonna get a lot worse
Mhm.
until we get to an 80% reduction in current carbon emissions. It is going to be,
that is
horrible.
significant. I mean, 80% of anything is significant. We're not talking about bringing in 10%, 11%, 12%, 80%. This would require, in essence, a different way to achieve these, right? And this is the funny thing about, electric cars. And every time somebody says, oh, we got to get to electric cars, it's zero emissions. Where do you think the electricity comes from? One of the funniest clips I've seen in a while is actually very recently on Facebook or something. This couple starts filming because they see a guy on the side of the road with a Tesla. And he stopped, and the guy says, pulls over, he comes in and goes, hey, can you help us out? He says, yeah, we'll help you, what do you need? Well, can you help me get some gas with Tesla? So the guy's thinking, this guy doesn't know he's driving an electric car. He goes, I've never run out before. And he goes, okay, that's a Tesla, right? The guy's like, yeah. He goes, how long have you had it? He goes, brand new, just picked it up. So, this guy is like, this is great. I'm gonna make a long story short. Finally, the guy says, no, I need gas. He opens the trunk of the Tesla, and he has a Honda generator that he wants to get gas to put in the Honda generator to plug it into the Tesla. So he's running a Tesla on a Honda, and the guy says, you could have just bought a Honda and skipped this whole process. So the point being, the electricity's coming from somewhere. So that's coming, folks, from probably a coal plant. Okay, it's coming from a coal plant, or maybe a nuclear plant, depending where you are. But that electricity has to come from somewhere, so the car might be zero emissions, but still the end result to get there. So until we have more technology or better technology in the technologies that we already have, I mean, reaching 80%, this falls into, we're getting into the ridiculousness of, say, the Green New Deal at this point. That's calling for these things to happen. I've said it, I don't know how many times, I'll say it again. Look, we have 120 plus years of perfecting the combustion engine, right? So the cars we drive today, not only are they just world ahead, different from the original engines in power and efficiency, and, what they can do in the cars themselves. But if we had been perfecting the electric engine for the last 120 years, we would have batteries in cars that could go 500 or 1,000 miles on a charge and rapidly charge, or we would have a network of stations that you pull in, it pulls out the cell and pops a new cell in and you drive away. You see what I'm saying, like you do with your propane tanks type of thing. It would be different. We're not there yet, and we can't get there overnight, and it's never worked out when we use a stick to force people into submission here. And I think we need more of a carrot, and we should be rewarding and incentivizing the development of alternative fuels or bettering the fuels that we have. Hydrogen is another option that we haven't put a lot of money and effort into. But 80%, so what happens when we get to 80%? Do they move the needle again?
who knows, but I can't imagine we're ever going to make the 80%. This is magical unicorns type
Yeah.
of stuff. They have no idea how we're going to get there, but we're going to force you and we're going to punish you and we're going to tax you until you get there. And you look at 2050, you say, well, I'm not going to make it there, or that's a long ways off. No, this starts right away. This gas tax and diesel tax starts right away.
I'm not going to make it there.
Yeah.
I've thought about that, Steve. I say not that I'm an old guy, but I go, I am so glad I'm on the other side of the hill, because if I was 20 years old, I'd look at my nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, and go, I don't know what world you're going to be living in when you're my age. You know, not just this stuff here, but your freedoms, right? Your freedoms, your freedom of speech, the election process. You know, we have this move to, you know, the Democratic Party. It seems that they don't they can't win in the ballot box, or they can't win, you know, on their argument, then they're gonna always change the rules, right? They're gonna change the court, they're gonna pack the court. They wanna get rid of the electoral college. Why? Why? The only reason you wanna get rid of that is you've lost a couple of elections on that process. And your candidate won the popular vote. Well, here's something that, like this, in 2016, the president won because he played on the rules that were laid out, and that was he concentrated on winning the electoral college to get into 270. If it was a popular vote, I think he would have changed his campaign strategy. So we see that happen, and so I look at that and I wonder what is going to be the world, because I have seen the erosion of our individual freedoms and rights. And if Democrats are in power, it's a matter of time before a show like this is gone. Before all these shows are gone. All these shows that aren't, look, we have, they're talking about this, basically Ministry of Truth, not to get too Orwellian on you here, but in essence, that's the same thing that they're using South Africa, the apartheid, as the model, right? To put this commission into place as to what we're allowed to say, and then have to be brought in front of them to answer for our freedom of speech. It's a scary path, Steve.
That is why you're fighting. That's why I'm fighting. That's why I'm out here. I look at I said I would never run again, and then I look at my 5 grandchildren and say, I can't do this. I would have no integrity if I didn't get back out here and fight, because what is happening to our world, the left is just out of control, and we're talking about the left here in Massachusetts as well. They have no sense of reality. These politicians have been in there too long. We need to overturn this. As you said in the last segment or last hour, we've got a chance to turn this. It doesn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
November 3rd is that date where we say, okay, we've seen enough, let's go. And I'm asking for the same thing right here, is let's say we've seen enough, and let's vote Steve Hall in there.
In 1990, here in Massachusetts, we had a very big anti-incumbent vote that year. It was the year that Paul Cellucci and Bill Weld swept into the odd corner office. We also had a shift in the legislative branch in the Commonwealth. In the Senate, the state Senate, actually went up to 16 Republicans. And I remember this so clearly because I ended up running for Senate, state Senate in 92. And we were examining, and I was in radio, and so obviously covering it. And back then, Belgium was president of the Senate. It scared the bejesus out of the Democrats that the Republicans jumped up to 16 members in the Senate, which hadn't happened for a long time and hasn't happened since, by the way. And they could have actually sustained a veto. So you had a Republican governor, and if it vetoed it, they could have supported it in the Senate. And that was way too much power as far as the Democrats were concerned in the Commonwealth. So they changed things around. But do you think that we will have some anti-incumbent, or at least some break the status quo ballots being cast this November 3rd?
I think every vote's going to count. And I'm going to tell you, and that's not just rhetoric. First of all, with COVID, we have 500,000 left-leaning voting college students not in Massachusetts this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there are going to be pockets within Massachusetts where we can turn it red. Certainly in my district, where Donald Trump won by 10 points, we can really make a difference out there. I think he's going to win bigger. We think he's going to win bigger, and we just need the same folks to understand that my opponent is a Biden-Harris liberal, and we're talking about someone there, Biden-Harris, who simply don't have the best interests of the United States in mind, and I support President Trump. I support the lower taxes. I support common sense immigration, and getting business back on their feet and going again. The governor yesterday was it yesterday, the day before, came out with a new plan for business in Massachusetts. Great. I applaud him for that, because it's about time we get Massachusetts going again. He recognizes it's time to get it going again, and I do applaud him for that.
Okay, yeah, because we only have a few minutes left. So about that, the shutdown here, are we being overzealous? Should we open up more and just say, look, because I'm looking, Steve, I look at this, I go, look, we're intelligent human beings. I've always said this about the businesses in the Commonwealth. These entrepreneurs who have these restaurants, bars, yoga shops, whatever it is, that they got there because they figure stuff out. That's what a business person does. Look at what Donald Trump has done. Look at the Middle East, right? He's approached it and has figured it out where politicians for decades and generations couldn't. Point is, we'll figure it out. Just give us what the rules are, what the playing rules are, what the field is, and we will get around that. When Joe Biden talks about, wow, I put up plexiglass in, well, welcome to the party, Joe. Have you gone out to a restaurant? I've been out to restaurants. I was at the 99 the other day. Guess what they have? They have plexiglass between, each seat at the bar. They eliminated one of the roles. So they figured this out. Should we let the state open up? And if you don't, nobody's for it. Just because it's open doesn't mean you got to go to the restaurant or that you got to go to the yoga shop, right? So if you don't like it, stay home. But stop telling the business people that they can't make a living. And wear the mask, practice sanitation, washing your hands. Do not embrace somebody. Don't shake their hands. Don't do that if that's uncomfortable with you. But let the businesses earn, right? The grocery stores have been working this whole time, right? And if it was so dangerous, Steve, all those clerks that I say hi to a couple of times a week as Teddy and I go through, the price chopper, they'd all be dead on the floor. So we know we can do this. Do we need to open up the state?
We need to open up now. Yeah, my wife and I both work in healthcare. I can tell you that there's a significant difference between dying of COVID and dying with COVID. And it's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Is COVID real? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it a tough virus? Yes, it is. But we're patriots. We're Americans. We're Massachusetts patriots here. We need to open up. We need to stop punishing businesses. These people put their lives in it. We've got suicides up. We got mental illness up. We have people abuses. We have people really struggling. We did what we could. We flattened the curve. We've got to get things going here. And Charlie Baker finally came out with a plan to do that. And it's a little late, but I commend him on that.
And open up. All right, in the couple minutes we have left, how's the campaign going?
It's going good. It's like I say, we've adjusted for COVID, but we've done very well there. We have some good fundraising coming in, and I think we've got a really good chance. We need everyone out there voting, and whether you're in my district or not, we need you out there. We've got to turn this state red. We've got to do the best we can, and let's throw some of these bums out, the left-leaning bums out.
I think turning the state red is very that's wonderful, great. I would be happy with just some equal representation to both parties. I would like to see a few more Republicans scattered through the state legislature. We have kind of a Republican governor in the corner office. But I would also love to see at least one or two Republicans on the federal delegation. I mean, that's just, especially where we have the Republicans have the White House and the Senate. Wouldn't you want a couple of Republicans also, in the Congress?
I would love that.
Yeah.
But go back to what's happening in the state. You go back to having veto power. I think that's where we first start. We've got to get to that point.
Yeah.
Ann Goby vetoed Governor Baker. Last count was 151 times he tried to cut the budget, and yet Ann Goby vetoed that 151 times. Vetoed an override.
All right, folks. Well, we're basically out of time. Kevin, tell people again where to go to find you on social media and what have you.
You find me, of course, on Facebook, and then it's electsteve.org, electsteve.org. I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to get your vote on November 3rd.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up the Joe Mangiacotti Show for the weekend here. I'll be back Thursday during Making Money Last. It's the political commentator with Jerry Doherty, and all about the Valley on Thursday night at 7 o'clock, so check that out. And, of course, follow me on social media at Joe Mangi Show, Joe, M-A-N-G-I Show. All right, folks, enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. There we go. Wrap some up.
Show, I think, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Great. Didn't cover the lot, bounced around. But basically got your message up there.
Yeah, and whether it's in the district or not, I think it's a good topic.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, this signal's so big.